Go away! Don't come any closer! I'm gonna tell my mom on you!
Well, that was unexpected. Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to Final Fantasy II, where we're raiding treasure chests from the Dragoons, and apparently there's a little kid and his mum living down here. Let's go talk to them and figure out what the hell's going on.
Hey, what's the big idea? You're not the bad guys. I thought the Empire had sent their soldiers after us again. When I grow up, I want to be a Dragoon just like my dad was. The Wyvern's right in there. It's sound asleep right now. My mom says it's gonna die soon, but that's not true, is it? I hope my son hasn't caused you any trouble. If he has, I do apologize. My husband was a Dragoon. The Imperial soldiers killed him along with the rest. My son and I are the only two left. In the room behind us is the last surviving Wyvern. It seems to be trying to tell us something, but I cannot speak its tongue. If only we had one of the pendants, we would be able to understand it. The cavern of the Wyverns lies north of this castle. That cavern may hold one of the pendants that allows one to speak the Wyvern's language. The Dragoons fought valiantly, but the Empire knows no honor. They poison the Wyvern's water. The Wyverns writhed in agony until that last breath. With their Wyverns dead, the Dragoons were picked off one by the Empire.
So, now we get the first introduction, and I believe, well, actually one of the few, actually I don't want to say a few times in the series, but, yeah, our introduction to the Dragoons and, yeah, dragons in general. Well, I mean, I suppose more of a Wyvern, really. Not particularly too sure what the difference between the two is. I think Wyverns are smaller in size compared to dragons that can be, you know, vast and gigantic, but whatever. It's semantics, really. It's all reptilian at the end of the day. But yeah, Dragoons, wiped out by the Empire, obviously, in context with the game, but yeah, as for anything else, as I mentioned beforehand, probably my favourite Final Fantasy/fantasy class in general, because, I mean, again, you got a warrior that can commune with fucking dragons and kick some serious ass. And particularly in the Final Fantasy series, although Final Fantasy II doesn't really quite get there just yet, yeah, they have quite a few interesting abilities. You know, one such example being, you know, the learn ability, where they can learn different attacks, and of course, well, the ability to, well, jump and cause massive damage with, you know, lances and spears and whatever. A lot of stuff that probably wouldn't really come into the fray until, I want to say Final Fantasy 3 or 4. The one that's really coming to mind is 4, more than anything else, but yeah, either way. To kind of get into brass tacks, so, I mean, the kid that we met right over there, again, the Dragoon that's missing, obviously, is Ricard. Wonder if we'll be seeing him sooner or later. But yeah, we have two characters here, one of which being Kain, son of a Dragoon who is sadly no longer with us, and of course, Alina, Kain's mother, and, well, yeah, somebody who, yeah, lost her husband. Is pretty much the two remaining Dragoon people in Deist, really. Kind of odd that the Empire didn't pick them off, but, yeah, either way. Again, there's no real link towards any of it, but yeah, obviously naming the, you know, the Dragoon's son, Kain, meant to be a reference towards Final Fantasy IV with the, you know, one of the major characters of that game, Kain being a Dragoon. In Final Fantasy IV, he mentions his father being Ricard, which isn't the case in Final Fantasy II, because Ricard is more, you know, a friend of the family, as opposed to Kain's actual father, who died in battle against the Emperor, so yeah, you can't exactly connect Final Fantasy IV and 2 together. I mean, even though, I'm pretty sure retroactively it probably wouldn't stop Square Enix from trying. Because, I mean, really, like, I mean, if you muddy a few details here and there, I think you could quite easily have Final Fantasy IV and 2 connect relatively well, but yeah, it's really more just an Easter egg for the sake of having Kain, you know, share homage to Final Fantasy IV, which I suppose is fitting in a lot of ways, considering how many elements do also connect between, you know, Final Fantasy IV and 2 in a lot of aspects, but Yeah. In fact, I mean, some might even argue that Final Fantasy IV was Final Fantasy II with a bit better of an improved story structure, which is, you know, kind of potent considering that the Super Nintendo was on the horizon and, well, it was also given the Final Fantasy II name in and of itself in a weird retroactive way, so it's all swings and roundabouts, really. But the point is, similar story beats between what's going on here, albeit maybe one exception being the very lunar adventure that the game takes towards the end where characters go into space. Yeah, Final Fantasy, but it's also got sci-fi in it. And I mean, and again, this was like way back during the, you know, the SNES era, when people were like, well, Final Fantasy VII ruined the series because it was all like science fiction and not fantasy, and that ruined it for me. Now let me play Final Fantasy II on a Super Nintendo, because it has me going to the moon in the final battle with a spaceship. Ugh. But in any case, so this is the Wyvern Cavern, where we're going to be doing a vast majority of exploring, and I end up sort of finding appropriate things out of order. What we're meant to be doing is, again, finding the pendant which we can use to commune with the Wyvern that's, you know, deep inside Castle Deist. Yeah, instead what I end up finding is, well, the Life Spring. Basically, a bedrock of Wyvern society where they dip their eggs into the ocean. Well, ocean? Yeah, more like a little pool, really. I mean, if it connected to the ocean, then I'm pretty sure there'd be wyvern eggs all over the place. But yeah. And, yeah, we gather a pendant, and whatever else. Anyway, one thing to point out is the toad status. It's something that I believe I just gave, you know, Layla for shits and giggles, and, well, yeah, she can turn people into toads, and they immediately run away from battle. There is a similar spell in that nature called Mini, which basically shrinks characters in half and pretty much, you know, cuts down their health as a result of that, but, yeah, not really anything too useful. I mean, this was really just more me giving the $10 tour of, ridiculous spells and whatever have you, really. But yeah, Layla does also have another useful spell in, you know, Thunder level 6, so, you know, she does come in pretty well prepared. It's just that we, you know, gotta get her health up to speed, first and foremost, and, you know, then she can start kicking ass with the best of us, although, again, her combat abilities are pretty well up to snuff, so really, when you do get new characters based upon, you know, whatever specific classes they're going for, they are decently well prepared. It's just a matter of, you know, making up the health deficit, really. But in any case, so to get back into the luscious Dragoon lore, so to speak, yeah, the Life Spring is pretty much there to, you know, act as a sort of hatchery and raise, the Wyvern's young. But again, since, you know, the Empire poisoned their waters, yeah, the Life Spring is pretty much their last little haven for, well, Wyverns pretty much existing, really. But in any case, though, that's pretty much where we step in. First of all, we're here to get the pendant, which we won't get until a bit of a roundabout way. Then for the time being, all we're really doing is just sort of, you know, exploring around the little dungeon here, clearing out, you know, zombies and monsters and creatures with fickles and damn it. Can never roll my R's when I want to. Fraught with frickles and frights. Frickles? Fickles? Queashed. In any case, so your main sort of enemies here are going to be zombies, Hillgeigers, some of the flan enemies, and, I believe you also get some of the, you know, the lizard enemies in here as well, but that's pretty much me just sort of going on memory. Whatever, you will see them as we go on, but in the meantime, however... See, look, even the Hillgeigers is afraid of the power that we wield. There. But yeah, either way, not much particularly changes in terms of our loadout here. I mean, we pretty much have Maria and Layla as our physical fighters, Furion White Mage and Guy Black Mage... Well, no, Furion Black Mage, Guy White Mage. God, brain shutting down. Me am Superman. Whatever. But yeah, you should pretty much get pretty stuck in as to how Final Fantasy II works and operates, so, I mean, I shouldn't really waste my breath, but it does pay to brush up on a bit of a crash course every now and then. But again, I suppose to talk about real terms, in terms of where I am in recording, I've already finished, you know, recording all the gameplay footage I need for Final Fantasy II. At this stage, I pretty much just sort of need to, you know, get some parts sort of converted from, you know, files or whatever. And then just record all the audio commentary. Final Fantasy II should be finished, which will then give me more time to cover more games now. Well, also taking care of other things, as we continue to explore around this little area, before again running into dreaded monsters. But yeah, I'm pretty much, again, you can probably tell with, you know, several different steps leading to different, you know, areas of the dungeon that are blocked off by walls and other such fare. But yeah, there are different pathways to take, although, again, in RPG terms, it pretty much means, oh no, we're going to be stopped in 5 minutes to do a battle. Monsters! And then you pretty much fight Adamantoys. I swear to god there was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster based on that, but then again, I might be thinking of, what's-its-face? The fucking, like, cannon launcher. You know, the one which you pretty much had to sacrifice life points in order to deal half the damage to opponents, or whatever the fuck was going on in the Duelist Kingdom, and its fucking wacky-ass rule set that wasn't really clearly defined yet. But yeah, to kind of talk about, you know, Turkey about trivia and whatever else. Yeah, shortly after Final Fantasy IX's release, with a PS2 on the horizon, I'm not sure whether or not this was just following trends in terms of what a lot of Japanese developers were doing with, you know, the turn of the millennium and, you know, high-powered but affordable means of, creating games, but yeah. With a PS2 on the horizon, Squaresoft actually wanted to remake Final Fantasy 1, 2, and Final Fantasy 3, and, yeah. They were pretty much going to get PS2 ports. I suppose you could probably kind of think of it similar to, like, Phantasy Star Generation 1 and 2 that were, you know, Phantasy Star 1 and 2 for the Mega Drive and Master System remade for PlayStation 2. But yeah, part of the reason why this never came to fruition is because, yeah, when Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, which was pretty much the one and only theatrical Final Fantasy release that I think ever existed, unless Advent Children got a theatrical release, but that's something I can't really recall at this stage. But yeah, basically, since Square was a video game company and not a film production sugar-me-do, yeah, they took a bit of a financial loss, and yeah, after that, Square bowed out of remaking any of them, save for Final Fantasy III, that was only really made after the Enix merger, and even then was sort of remade for, like, handheld consoles, and, you know, hence why we got Final Fantasy 3D for the longest time until... Well, I mean, I want to say it was either until fan translations or the Pixel Remaster, where you really got, like, a close representation of what, you know, the NES version of Final Fantasy III would have been like, so, yeah, bit of an odd duck. I will admit, though, I guess that is probably part of the reason why you did see some of those, like, CG movies added into, you know, Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3 when, you know, it was given the Final Fantasy Origins collection, although I think Final Fantasy Origins might have just been Final Fantasy 1 and 2. I mean, yeah, it would have had to have been, because, I mean, Final Fantasy 3 didn't get a Western release until 2006, and even in that case, that was more down to, you know, it being remade for the... I want to say it was the DS? Yeah, it would have had to have been the DS, not the GBA, but... Acquiesced. By the way, an even funnier thing that was happening is that, yeah, there were apparently talks of, you know, Enix and Squaresoft merging as early as the year 2000, but, yeah, with Final Fantasy The Spirits Within's financial failure, Enix themselves actually backed out of merging with Squaresoft, which they wouldn't do until 2003, so... Yeah, a bit of a strange turn of events. We could have gotten Square Enix a few years earlier, and arguably ruined Squaresoft more, depending on who you ask. Although, I mean, then again, I suppose for a lot of people's gripes about, you know, Final Fantasy these days, I think a lot of that had more to do with Hironobu Sakaguchi's departure than, well, anything else about in terms of the game's not really, quote-unquote, feeling like Final Fantasy. If I may borrow a bit of a Spider-Man-y vernacular, because, yeah. I don't know, like, I mean, again, there's a lot of people that feel sort of and I'm mainly just sort of talking about old heads here who tend to be a little bit wary of games like... Again, some people post Final Fantasy X, you know, others post Final Fantasy VI, where they feel that the series was in complete betrayment of the fans or whatever for going full sci-fi, and then fans just doing the fanboyish thing of thinking that everything that I like es bueno, everything I dislike is El Diablo. So on and so forth. But yeah, in any case, we've still got more treasure hunting to do, so what else is there to talk about? Well, I suppose as we continue to make our way through, yeah, there are actually a few alternate scenes you can actually get throughout your playthroughs if you decide to do certain things. Two examples I found out actually was, you know, one alternate scene plays out in the Kajuan Keep, where again, if you recruit Gordon into your party, and then go all the way back to Altair instead of going forward into the dungeon, you get a scene of Hilda chewing out Gordon for vanishing and having Joseph die to get the goddess spell to open the Kajuan Keep, when his voice would have let the crew in immediately, and thus Joseph wouldn't have had to die. I suppose part of it is also sort of playing into Gordon's whole character arc of going from, you know, a cowardly prince to, you know, the courageous king, but, yeah, poor guy. Though, I mean, then again, I suppose it was his effort to try and be brave, but he didn't really have the skills to do it. Yeah, well, again, something a more character-focused game probably would have followed up on, but either way, there is actually a second scene, and one more relevant to our current situation, where, again, if you return to Altair with the Wyvern egg in your possession, yeah, Gordon will ask you, what the fuck are you doing here, and why are you not in Deist, you know, helping out the Dragoons and Wyverns, which we kind of need in order to give ourselves a bit of an edge against the Empire. Which I suppose in and of itself, I mean, the fact that, I mean, I guess the Dragoons and Wyverns are very much, you know, the all-powerful Jedi Knights that could have fought against the Empire, you know, and another tenuous reference to Star Wars, because, you know, you remember in Star Wars Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon Jinn rode it on a fucking dragon and, you know, used it to eat Darth Maul and some shit? Yeah? Oh, and yes, by the way, I am fully aware about the whole Krayt Dragon mythos of Star Wars, but nobody ever uses that in the actual series unless it's from one of the fucking Disney shows, but in which case, I don't give a fuck. Unless it's Knights of the Old Republic, where you do actually get to kill a dragon, with landmines, because if you run into that cave and try and get the star map, it'll fucking eat you, so, yeah man, don't fuck with dragons. Or they will fuck with you! But yeah, green souls. Same thing pretty much applies compared to red souls, they're just a different color, because now they're gangrenous and the grain. But yeah, physical attacks are the way to go, so Maria and Layla, Alpha Layla is gonna get her work in. But anyway, what I wanted to say before I started talking turkey about the enemies is, yeah, to talk about Wyverns and Dragons for a second. Not the first time they appeared in Final Fantasy, in fact they were actually one of the bigger plot points of Final Fantasy 1 where, again, in lieu of being, you know, summons, you actually go to the Dragon King Bahamut, who, yeah, again, does technically have his origins in Final Fantasy 1, and you actually get to explore a civilization of dragons, where, again, well, I guess it sort of depends on the mythos, really, but, yeah, it actually portrays dragons as, you know, wise, intelligent creatures who, you know, have their own civilization and customs, and, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, most Final Fantasy stuff usually tends to be its own separate sort of dimension kind of thing, but, yeah, I mean, again, if you did want to find some fickle link to Final Fantasy 1, I suppose the hunting down of dragons and, you know, the links of, you know, taking the dragons away from the series is part of the reason why they eventually become so rare later on, and only the most powerful of the dragons survive, like Bahamut, Spyro, and Puff, the magical dragon. But yeah, I mean, either way though, to kind of challenge that whole Final Fantasy, each game is its own thing, really. Again, I think I might have brought this up before in passing, but again, I'm not really too sure if it's meant to be a completely separate universe, or like it's a completely separate, like, it's separated by, like, you know, 1,000 years or whatnot, you know, with just reoccurring wildlife and mythology just sort of trickling down here and there. Again, I'm not really too sure what the status is, but I mean, either way, it is fun to try and, you know, play mental gymnastics and sort of connect it all together, but yeah, the only things that are canonically meant to sort of connect is the summons, really. Unless, of course, the games themselves are directly connected in a Final Fantasy 7 to 10 kind of way. I mean, again, one specific example I actually remember was actually in Final Fantasy 8, where, again, I think if you get an appearance by Gilgamesh, in the Japanese version, he ends up directly referencing Bart. Well, at least the first two letters of his name, but, yeah, that's in Final Fantasy 8, which is that meant to imply that, you know, the whole X-Death kind of thing happened in the Final Fantasy VIII universe? Curious. I mean, then again, it might just be a whole sort of, like, summons are kind of akin to, like, well, D-Links in Kingdom Hearts, really, where you summon them from a different world and they go to their own ethereal realm. Because, I mean, that does actually come into play, actually, in Final Fantasy IV, when, you know, Rydia has pretty much a whole hyperbolic time chamber summoner training kind of thing, and I don't know, it was like a bit of a neutral realm. I really don't know what to say. Final Fantasy is just take it as its own thing to avoid the headache. Unless, of course, you're really into all that Dissidia shit, in which case it's sort of a bit, Hoiven Maven, really. But yeah, I mean, if you, that's also a bit of a useful use of the warp functionality, where, again, if you want to level up your warp spells pretty well, just go into a dungeon, go to the lowest level, and pretty much warp to and fro between areas, and bada bing, you do the thing, and you can upgrade warp to, you know, be effective against your enemies, or just sort of help you out. And another useful feature is that Warp, unlike the teleport ability, won't completely drain your health. It doesn't take you out, you know, full way out of the dungeon, but you can teleport yourself back to the first floor and just sort of retrace your steps and, you know, get out of the dungeon, no fuss, no muss. But again, that's just useful life skills as we take on some yellow souls. Which again, I know are just sort of generic as all hell demons really, but yeah, they kind of make me think of the lost souls from Doom. Easy to defeat enemies that launch fire at us at level 5. Oh, dearie me. You know, if we were useful against fire... Useful against fire? God, my brain is just fucking shutting down these days. But either way, if you want to know what to do against these souls, physical attacks works pretty well, and again, if you have white magic on your side, then yeah, pretty much have Guy use the spell Shell, or use the spell Wall, which pretty much buffs up your magical defense. And bada bing, you won't be damaged as much at all. And yeah, using Sap doesn't work, because the yellow souls are magical. Yeah, and using Stop Magic doesn't work either. It's like they feed on the magic. Let's see, I need some more irrelevant trivia as we continue to go through the dungeons. Yeah, to kind of talk about Gordon's brother Prince Scott, he initially had more sprites in the Pixel Remaster, but they were cut from the game. This may have been implying that the Dawn of Souls remake was in fact once considered to be playable, but was dropped, for reasons that I mentioned beforehand, because, yeah, I think there was, I can't tell if it was either with the PS1 versions or perhaps the 20th Anniversary Edition, but yeah, Final Fantasy II did pretty much get like a pseudo-sequel, starring, well, spoiler alert, all the characters that end up dying in this game, that end up being the playable party members for, you know, Dawn of Souls, which is a pseudo-sequel that takes place after Final Fantasy II, except, you know, where Final Fantasy II deals with our 3 heroes going up against the Empire and the forces of Hell, yeah, our deceased party members end up actually fighting the forces of Heaven. Now, why exactly do they end up fighting Heaven? Well, that'll explain a little bit later, but in the meantime, though, yeah. Still have more battles and more things to explore, so, not really too much else to say in this case. Yeah, one thing I can mention, I suppose, is that, yeah, there are actually 2 soundtracks in the Pixel Remaster, one of which is actually like an orchestral, natural, you know, music version. I think it was, again, still composed by Nobuo Uematsu, but, yeah, this game also gives you the ability to switch between the, you know, the orchestral version that was made specifically for this version, and indeed the, well, original NES version soundtrack, so yeah, you do have your choice between 2 different soundtracks, and in the bonus video I am going to be showing off what the, you know, the arrangement soundtrack is like, but, again, I figured for posterity's sake and, you know, getting in some bangin' chiptune goodness, yeah, NES all the way, really. But, we're nearly finished here, so not really too much else to say, as Guy has upgraded his life. Oh, thank goodness for his life. His life is so rich, indeed. Fooled you! Oh, shucky dawns. Anyway, now we are through the right door. And what is this? Chimera coming. Oh my god, I'm seeing double. 8 chimeras. Although, really, there was only one on the overworld, so you couldn't have made it a boss encounter like I think it was sort of intended to be. Yeah, well, whatever. We do get a slightly different environment, as we can see the life spring in the background. I keep on wanting to say the live stream, but then again, that's just Final Fantasy VII shite. Which, clearly, if you want to connect the universes, is the origin of the live stream slash... Fuck it, I'm not even gonna go there. Aqueist. In any case, so, yeah, chimeras, basically being hybrid beasts, again, they do have certain magical attacks. They do have the Blaze ability, which pretty much deals minor damage where they breathe fire on you. But though it's technically its own different spell for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, again, possibly something to do with the mythological creature itself. I can't say for certain, but, yeah, either way, destroy the Chimera and you pretty much free up the Life Spring. But again, we're doing a lot of this stuff out of order. This is where you're meant to, well, do a few certain plot revelation-y things that I may have already brought up before in a bit of a spoiler. But, yeah. I mean, as you can see, Blaze doesn't exactly do much damage, and even when you do eventually get the ability yourself via some, well, quite relevant plot things that we're going to be doing right now, yeah, if you'll excuse me and pardon my belch, yeah, Blaze isn't really all that useful. But yeah, physical attacks seem to be working pretty well so far. Pretty pimped out for this point in the game, so yeah, the only thing I can really recommend, I mean, again, if, you know, if your Blaze spell is really that disorienting to you, just use Sap, or just go to town on it, really. And thus, bada bing, we do the thing. We have claimed victory, but we also have no reason to go here yet. Which is part of the reason why I pretty much remembered, oh, I was doing this out of order. And, yeah, it was this point that I pretty much just did a bit of a major U-turn and backtracked to, where I was supposed to go, where again, if you pretty much follow this, pathway on Basement 2, then this will eventually lead you to where you need to go. In this case, pretty much leading you all the way towards, you know, some remaining Dragoon armor, which, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it couldn't be, Alina's husband, because, you know, he was killed by the Empire, so, yeah, I suppose just a Dragoon man who lost his life, but still left his pendant behind, so... Anyway, we have that, we return to Castle Deist, and, yeah, we can now pretty much teleporting, via editing, and, yeah, commune with, well, the last remaining Wyvern, who seems to be on his last legs. I probably should have voice-acted some of this dialogue, but, fuck it. I mean, either way, the only thing you need to do is talk to the Wyvern and, well, pretty much get a wee bit of it, well... Actually, no, it's part of the main quest, so, yeah, just get more story content, so... Cutscene go now. We seek your aid in destroying the Empire, our common foe. Will you help us?
The Empire's poison already courses through my veins. I will not escape the fate that befell my brood. Shortly before the battle with the Empire, a Dragoon named Ricard set out to find the ultimate magic. Where he is gone, I do not know. I have one last request to make of you. Take this egg to the cavern north of here and submerge it in the life spring. It is the last remaining Wyvern egg. If it is not submerged in the life spring soon, it will wither and die. The egg. The last of the Wyverns. Take it to the life spring. I beg of you.
Oh dear, that poor Wyvern. But, yeah, this was pretty much what you were meant to do, like, go into the thing, head to, like, you know, Dungeon Basement 2 in order to get the pendant, then go back to Castle Deist, and then pretty much explore the rest of the dungeon so you can get to the life spring, fight the Chimera, and then just place the last remaining Wyvern egg in so that you can, well, turn the tide in the battle against the Empire. I did this a bit out of order, and it won't be the first, nor will it be the last time I do such a thing, but yeah, we fell off the bridge, and that doesn't lead you to the life spring, mind you, but, yeah. Submerged in the life spring, and, we have an ally in our fight. And on that note, I do apologize for the somewhat rambly part of Final Fantasy II, but next time on the Final Fantasy II commentary, well, we return to Castle Deist to get some more cutscenes, so catch you dudes and dudettes next time. Bye-bye.